Online Racing is sponsored by Elgato, who created this lovely stream deck. For more information about the stream deck, the link is in the description below.
Good evening, everybody. Hope you're doing well. Welcome back to Apex Online Racing for some more Hype Energy F1 League action. We're getting towards the business end of the season, and it's time for one of the fan favourite races on the calendar, the Singapore Grand Prix around the Marina Bay street circuit. Last time out, we had one of the shortest races of the calendar around Monza. Tonight is going to be one of the longest. My name is Luke Etheridge, and joining me once again in the commentary box is the fantastic Kieran McGinley. Kieran, how are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you, Luke. Oh, you're too kind. You're way too kind. But I'm happy to be back in the box with you. Second race of this new year, of course, and we get into the crunch end of the season. It is crunch time. No more mistakes now. And we saw a pretty eventful Italian Grand Prix last time out, and the Italian Indomie could have won the race, but he jumped the start last time out, so we're hoping that that little bit of a trigger finger on his clutch doesn't let him down today. It was Blizzard who won the race last time out. It was his fourth race win of the season, but the point margin between Blizzard and Domi now is just over 50 points. It's going to be a huge ask for Blizzard and for anybody else in the championship to try and catch the Italian. However, we've got plenty of rounds to do it, and here we come to the second night race of the season. It's Singapore.
Yeah, Singapore. First used in 2008, the track largely unchanged since then, just reprofiled around the Singapore Sling and the Anderson Bridge, of course, getting rid of the chicane that was the Singapore Sling. That caused Kimi Raikkonen so much trouble in his first year here in Formula 1, well, at the Singapore Grand Prix, their first year in 2008, as he was trying to defend his championship title, and it was probably that accident that really ended any chance he had of defending that title. It's a very tricky circuit indeed, quite heavy tyre wear around here as well, and as is always the case in tracks in this part of the world, Vietnam, we've seen it on the game, Malaysia, we saw it quite often, and we're seeing it here tonight. It is raining at the moment.
It is raining. I was waiting to break the news, and yes, it is raining currently here at the Marina Bay street circuit. It's very light rain, intermediate conditions though. Intermediate tyres are on the cars, and you see Aero, I'm just watching Aero tackle the Anderson Bridge and then in towards their hairpin. Not many overtaking opportunities here at Singapore. However, there are two DRS zones to try and help you with that. There's an overtaking opportunity into turns 1, 2 and 3. A little bit of DRS to try and help you make that move. The biggest overtaking opportunity we've seen Mark Webber and Lewis Hamilton collide here. It's turn number 7. DRS from the exit of turn 5 through the slight kink at 6. Flat out all the way through, keep that DRS open. You have enough rear aero to keep that car in place before you get to the braking zone of turn number 7. Very narrow track, and it's a very, very demanding circuit indeed. Yes, we run 50% races, but if there's rain in the race, we could be looking at a race time of approaching an hour.
Yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous. And we're going to see Aero coming around now. It's 31 laps, and with 23 corners, I can tell you one thing. I think getting up towards 700 corners for a race, more than you're going to see at any other race. It is really demanding for the drivers, as Aero now heading around turn 3, just running wide ever so slightly, getting caught on the curb on the exit, and that just brought the rear of this car stepping out of line ever so slightly as he now comes around turn 5. You can see him, tapping the wall there, getting very lucky that he tapped the wall with the rear first, not damaging your car. On this game in real life, that's probably a gearbox broken as he now heads down towards the braking zone at Raffles Boulevard into turn 7. Now heading towards turn 8, a feature of the first sector, and in a way the final sector is his twisty, almost 90-degree right and left-handers that you see quite often as he now comes through turn 9. That barrier on the outside there just jutting out ever so slightly, ready to claim an errant front wing or wheel if you run a bit too wide. This is the reprofiled Singapore Sling and Anderson Bridge section as he heads now through 10, 11 and 12, heading over the bridge where we saw Felipe Massa absolutely sideways almost as he tried to pass Bruno Senna in the 2012 race. Now coming round turn 13, down another DRS straight that you might see in the race, assuming it is dry, and it does provide a little bit of an overtaking opportunity as Aero now starts the final sector of the lap, coming into turn 14. Again, watch out for that barrier on the left-hand side. Now it's all about being nice and careful and smooth for the end of the lap. You don't want to ruin your tyres, especially if we get a dry race. Tyre temperature and keeping your tyres in good condition will be oh so important underneath the grandstand as you head now through 18 and 19. Quick burst on the throttle, not even getting to full throttle in these conditions, Aero, just to show you how tricky it is at this moment in time, making sure not to hit that wall on the right hand side. Then through 22 and 23, opening up the throttle towards the finish line for a 151.151 there. 17 seconds roughly off what you'd expect in dry conditions, just showing how tricky it is, and especially around a street circuit as Domi now goes up into first place. Can't afford to get it wrong. One slight mistake, it could well be qualifying over.
Yeah, and I've experienced that in my time in racing. Yeah, Singapore, it does like to catch you out, especially in the traction zones. If you don't have the car set up properly to handle the many traction zones there are around this circuit, you are going to be caught out. Domi then putting it on pole position, 50.6 from the Italian. Blizzard now puts it onto the front row with a 50.8 in the Williams. We're getting some drivers now approaching the end of their lap. I believe Dario in the McLaren getting all sorts of sideways out of 23. 51.003 from Dario puts him onto the second row of the grid. I believe this is Surface heading his way towards the line. 52.3 from the Renault driver puts him at 5th fastest. How about Johan? What can he do coming towards the line? He now goes 5th fastest with that 51.6. I believe this is going to be Sam Gamer heading his way towards the line. 52.0 from him. Gamer coming across the line. He sets a 51.5 in the Red Bull. And last but not least, we've got Zach, who's making his way around the final corner. He's starting a flying lap, though.
Yeah, so pretty close times at the moment with Domi fastest, Blizzard in second, Aero just ahead of his Shizou teammate at the moment, so they're on 3rd and 4th. Sam Gamer in 7th, and it was a great race from Sam last time out, getting his best result of the season. 5th position for him. We also saw Surface get his first ever podium just behind Domi in 2nd, despite that drive-through penalty. Coming through to 2nd was still a fantastic result for him. But of course, Blizzard had quite a lonely race towards the victory, as Sam, very lucky there. I don't know how he hasn't actually lost his front wing end plate, as Aero goes up now into a 158.491. Now, this is something you will see quite a lot in the wet conditions, I say as Domi comes into the pit lane. Normally, drivers like to do multiple laps just to get a bit used to the conditions. They will have practiced in the wet. Obviously, we know around Singapore it's always a danger, but not as much in the dry, so it just gives them a chance for these track conditions on this day in history to get used to the circuit. As Blizzard, he improves again onto pole position now with a 150.3.
And that does suggest that the conditions are slightly improving. Either that or all that water that's on the racing line is, being displaced by those intermediate tyres. They can displace around about 15 litres per second, nowhere near as much as the extreme wet tyres, the blue wall tyres that we could see here at Singapore. You never know, never rule it out. Surface then makes his way across the line, 51.6 with 10.5 minutes to go. That puts him onto the 4th row of this grid, just slightly behind Johan. I say that, Johan's just improved on his lap time. He's now onto a 51.0. Just to expand on the point you made earlier on, Luke, yeah, you will normally see drivers do multiple laps on intermediates or wet tyres. And the idea about that is that these tyres, these intermediates or these wet weather tyres, the tyre delta that you get and that you lose between each and every lap on these tyres is so minimal that it's almost worth trying to get some good laps in with some fuel, because these conditions in the wet are always changing. You're always going to get a slight change of weather when it is raining. So it's worth sticking out there and seeing if you can improve already on that lap time. With, losing a marginal amount of time due to the tyres, you're only going to make that time back up because of the lower fuel you'll be running at that point in the lap. So it's a real balancing act, but don't be surprised if you see 2 or 3 laps from the intermediate tyres before drivers come back to the pits.
Yeah, interestingly, Domi's been into the pits and put another fresh set of the intermediate tyres on. So if he was wanting to save any for the race, not really doing that too much. Drivers over an entire weekend get 4 intermediates and 3 wet tyres, and quite often if it is forecast to be wet and it's the same in qualifying, you don't see them using too many. So Domi thinking he can get a bit of time. I don't know whether he picked up any damage on his second lap on his first run, whether that's why he came into the pits. But interestingly, most of the others had gone for that second lap and he decided against it. He's still in 3rd place at the moment. CRG Gamer in 4th, and he's been a bit of a dark horse in the second part of this season. Really came into form ever since that Monaco Grand Prix. Qualified on pole, finished in 2nd in similar conditions to this, and every race he's attended since then, apart from Azerbaijan, where he finished 4th, he's been on the podium.
Yeah, and it's a great turn of form, isn't it, from Gamer there in the Red Bull as he peels off into the pit lane. He's validated that last lap, but currently sitting P4 at the moment as he makes his way back into the pit lane. Yeah, a little bit of a dark horse, actually. He's got some form of late, and he'll be hoping it carries on here in Singapore. News down at the Racing Point garage, though. Aero's tempted to go onto those Red Bull soft tyres. There's still a little bit of rain in the air at the moment, so maybe not the best idea to do it whilst there's still a bit of rain coming down onto the track. Have to say, the rain is just a tad lighter than what it was at the very start of this session as Zach gets all sorts of sideways coming out of turn 5. He's had 2 bites of the cherry to set a lap time so far, but he's invalidated both attempts at this moment in time. He's now making his way in towards turn 7, onwards now towards turn 8. Only driver yet to set a lap time here in qualifying. Just over 7.5 minutes to go, so he's got plenty of time to do it as he's spinning up those rear tyres all the way through now, coming through turn 9 as we head away towards turn 10. Obviously reprofiled since it was first debuted here in Singapore. This section in particular, gone are those very, very narrow chicanes, and in comes a nice bit of tarmac that you can really flow the car through as he now brakes hard for possibly one of the slowest corners on the track. Through turn 13, heading over the bridge. Now we head our way on towards turn 14, heading our way now into the final sector. 112.8 from him in the second sector. That's the timer so far. But now trying to make sure you keep those rear wheels in check as you try and turn in for 15, and then you've got to try and trail brake it going in towards 16. Very easy to get that one wrong later on in the race. But now we come to sort of 90-degree section. You now head under the grandstands, underneath the fans as we head now in through 19. A little bit of a tap of the wall there as we head our way through 20 and 21, trying to keep that back end in check, and he's going to have a bit of reduced downforce, will he, in towards the final corners. He's decided not to take the final corners. He's decided to come back into the pit lane, and that's something that's going to catch some drivers out. The way this pit lane entrance works is that it tells you the speed limit and draws a big line over that pit lane entrance, but that's not where the speed limit starts. So that has caught out a couple of drivers in the past. It will continue to catch out drivers. You can brake a little bit later. There's a second, more solid line, a more bold line telling you where that limit starts. But yeah, very slow pit lane, and that first line is certainly going to catch some drivers out.
Yes, well, hopefully they remember to brake at least for the second one. They don't want to be picking up any 5-second penalties. I think it was Davio last time who had 20 seconds of penalties in the last race, and a possible podium ended up with him only finishing in 10th place. Domi has gone fastest on the fresh set of the intermediate tyres, and I just wonder if the high temperatures that we usually get around this Singapore circuit, the rain definitely looks as though it's lightened, but nowhere near enough for slick tyres. I just wonder if the high temperatures are meaning that the drivers are having to use a lot of sets of intermediate tyres because they're just burning them up too quickly.
Yeah, it could be a case, and obviously you only get a handful of them. 4 sets of intermediates you get, and of course one of them's taken away at the end of practice. So really, in reality, you only get 3 tyres. So it's 3 sets of inters to use across qualifying and the race. So you've got to be really careful if there's expected to be rain later on in the race. If drivers are using multiple sets of intermediates, as Tommy flicks out that back end there, Scandinavian flick as he went through 14 there. But if the drivers are using multiple sets of intermediates and multiple sets of different intermediate tyres, that implies that they think it's not going to rain in the race. And speaking of not raining, that's exactly what's happening right now. The rain has stopped here at Marina Bay, so you can just see there's a little bit of spray coming off the tyres, signifying that there is still water out on the track, but it's nowhere near as bad as before, and it's come at a crucial point. Domi's abandoned his lap time. He's heading to the pits. I think there's only one thing on the Italian's mind.
I think it's the same thing on everyone's mind at the moment. Sam Gamer's carrying on despite a moment towards the end of his first run on these set of tyres. He's down in 10th, just behind his teammate at the moment. This is probably bad news for Zach. He's only just gone out on circuit on a set of the intermediate tyres. He's going to be hoping that it just stays dry, well, stays wet, sorry, a bit longer. It is quite warm, obviously, around Singapore. Average air temperature in real life for the Formula 1 races is about 30 degrees, but because there's no sun, obviously, you haven't got that same effect of the sun heating up the track. These floodlights are powerful. They are nowhere near as powerful, obviously, as the sun, so not heating up the track as much, but Zach does look like he's struggling. If it dries out, those that have gone out now on outlaps, especially Zach as he's the last one, they're really going to struggle all of a sudden. There's a few drivers flirting with the idea of dry tyres. Aero decided to go back out on a set of the intermediates, and basically he's only going to have one run on this, and if it dries out, he's messed it up. Dario thought about going to the soft tyres. He's back to choosing inters, as is Domi. They're really unsure what to pick. This is fantastic when the drivers do all this preparation and then the weather comes and throws a spanner in the works and they're not quite sure what to do. They've got to think on their feet a bit more.
Yeah, and it's always an awkward time where the weather changes just when you want to go out for your final run. Well, in terms of Johan, he's currently going out there. He's on a flying lap right now on these intermediate tyres. So to me, he won't have enough time to get back to the pit if he wanted to try a dry tyre run. But looking at the spray coming off those tyres, I don't think we're going to be at that crossover point by the time the checkered flag comes out. So could be a really close one. I'm really glad I don't have to drive these cars in this really close decision. It's going to be mightily close. You'll be trying to click between the dry tyres and the wet tyres to see which one is better, which one gives the better delta. Johan trying to get it all slowed down there in towards turn 14, just about kept it out of the wall in through 15, now coming through turn 16, as now it's really important to have that grip from the tyres. This is when you need them the most, going in towards now this 90-degree corner section. Don't want to hit that right-hand side wall where Daniel Ricciardo hit all those years ago, back in 2013. He was driving for Toro Rosso at the time. He now makes his way all the way through, in through turns 22 and 23, using that tarmac and that paint on the right-hand side. Brave boy, considering the conditions out there. 50.8 from Johan, improves by just under 0.2 of a second, and that puts him now onto 5th place on the grid. Looks like now Domi, Dario, Blizzard, Gamer, Surface, Suku and Deso all out there on soft tyres. You've got Zach though, who's just invalidated that last lap time once again. He's really struggling to try and stay within those track limits. That's normally coming through turns 11 and 12. Just the curb on turn 12 is so inviting. Sorry, turn 11. It's so inviting to try and use as much of that curb as possible. But of course, once all 4 tyres leave the track, that is when your lap time is invalidated. So for Zach, he's got to try and make sure that this next run puts a lap time on the board, or he will be starting from the back of the grid. Sam Gamer retired, by the way. He feels he can't improve in these conditions, so he will not have another attempt. So that leaves us then, Domi, the only person into the 49s, as he just lets Blizzard go, not willing to hold him up, or Blizzard not willing to wait around, whichever way you want to look at it. Dario, though, in second with a 50.321, Blizzard in third with a 53.46, but then you've got Aero there, 50.491, Johan then 50.8, so a lot of times then that are very, very competitive, and it's all down to which tyre is the one that works. And to be honest with you, it does look like right now the dry tyres, there's not really a lot of spray anymore. It looks like a pretty dry track, and the problem now is it's a green track. There's not much rubber laid down.
And the other problem is, most of the cars seem to be at the same part of the track at the moment. I'm on board with Dobby. You can see Blizzard and Dario ahead of him. Behind, you've got Deso, CRG Gamer, all on soft tyres, all trying to find some gaps. You've got Surface and Suku not too far behind. For their sake, I hope the timer on screen at the moment is lying to us, because it currently says 8 seconds left, and it's going to be really tight for some of these guys. Aero's second at the moment on the intermediates. DRS has been enabled, so that says a lot. It is definitely dry. And no, the timer wasn't lying to us. No. Look at all that. Johan, Gamer, Surface, Suku and Deso have left it too late. They've all failed to make it. It's a bit like Monza the other year when they're all spending all the time trying to get in the slipstream. A disaster for all those drivers, because surely now these top 4 are... A, we know they're safe in the top 4, but it's Blizzard, Davio and Domi. It's a straight one-lap shootout between these guys.
discount Domi because he's invalidated his lap going through turns 1 and 2, so he will not be able to improve on this lap time. Aero is not on a flying lap. He'll try and hold on to second place, and on those intermediate tyres, well, he'll get a free choice of tyre no matter what happens in the race, assuming it's going to be dry. So it's down to Dario and Blizzard then. Can they find an improved lap time in the closing stages? They're the only two drivers who are on a flying lap in the last bit of qualifying. Everybody else missed the cut, so we'll have to see what happens then. Blizzard and Dario then making their way in towards the turn 13 section, now heading on towards turn 14. Blizzard will be first to the line. He gets towards the sector 2 line and he's 4 seconds quicker, so it really is going to be a shootout between Dario and Blizzard. Which of these drivers is going to grab pole position? It's only a matter of time before we find out as they head their way now in towards that 90-degree corner section. In we go then with Blizzard through turns 18 and 19, trying to make sure the car bites in, but Blizzard's invalidated the lap time. All Dario has to do now is keep it within the white lines. He could grab pole position here as he now makes his way through 20, through 21, and now we come away towards 22 and 23. Dario in the McLaren, he's invalidated the lap time as well. I don't believe it. Domi grabs pole position and he didn't even have to do anything in the last stint. Dario, Blizzard, all invalidated their lap times. Domi invalidated his early on, and that's one of the most amazing displays of qualifying I think you're ever going to see. Domi has got away with that one for sure. He won't care though. He's on pole position.
I'm going to be honest, Kieran. I think they've all got away with one there. They've got a free choice of tyres now for the start of this race. If it's, assuming it's dry, they can go medium hards, which I'd say is the suggested strategy you want. But Domi, as Jess said, he was lucky. They've been a bit brave there. I wonder if they just thought, no one's beating us behind, we'll just make a slight mistake there and get onto the medium tyres. It wouldn't be the worst idea, but it is Domi, Aero, Dario, Blizzard, Yoan, Gamer, Surface, Suko, Deso, Sam Gamer, Zach failing to set a time at all. Sam Gamer making a mistake through the final corner in qualifying, crashing out. This could be really interesting. Now, we saw last week, obviously, Domi have a bit of a problem starting from pole position, a drive-through penalty, which would be a lot more costly here because it's such a long pit lane and it's such a slow speed limit. You really don't want to have to make 2 stops around here, even though if you're starting on the soft tyres, that's probably the only strategy you'd have to go for. So I'm imagining we will see a lot of mediums.
Yeah, I think so. Well, we won't be seeing mediums anymore, that's for sure. Wow, look at that. That looks worse than what we had in qualifying. I can confirm wet tyres are at the ready. Get ready, get your popcorn, get your drinks. We're in for the long haul. We could be approaching the hour time limit. That's just without safety cars. Normally, wet weather races here at Singapore can take anywhere between 50 and 55 minutes, and that's before the safety cars. So grab that popcorn. This is your last chance. We're in for the long haul.
Yes, definitely. I mean, I know you guys can't see it at the moment as we're just waiting for the drivers to alter their setup slightly and pick their strategies. It's bucketing it down. Whereas in the last session it was, it's a bit damp, you know. This is properly raining. It's proper. But we've seen it on this game before. Sometimes it rains this heavy, and you can amazingly get away with the intermediates. They're an absolutely fantastic tyre that can cope with a lot of conditions. If I was someone along the lines of maybe Domi, who'd been out quite often on the sets of intermediates, I'm hoping he's kept a spare set fresh, or I'd be hoping that it's full wet conditions. Otherwise, he might find himself in a bit of trouble.
I think the drivers will have seen this coming as well. Otherwise, they wouldn't have used as many intermediate tyres as they did. They probably saw this heavy downpour at the start of the race and thought, well, we've got wet tyres. They get 2 sets of wet tyres for qualifying and the race. So it is going to be expected to be that one-stop strategy if it's going to be, obviously, the wet tyres are used all race. However, of course, that doesn't mean they have to stop. Crazy, I know, but technically they wouldn't have to stop. The mandatory tyre rule only occurs if it's dry for the entire race. So in theory, you don't have to pit. However, a track like Singapore, where tyre wear is so critical in your setup, you have to take it into account. You can't have too much camber in the tyres, otherwise you exacerbate that wear. I think, I'm going to put my neck out on the line, could be a chance to see drivers chance the no stop. But I very much doubt it. I don't think anybody will commit to it all the way through. They'll try and split this race in half, probably pit round about lap 14, 15, and go onto a brand new set of wet tyres to get to the end of the race. So we'll have to wait and see. Absolutely bucketing it down out there. Let's hope these drivers have been practicing in the wet. Normally, that's at the back of your mind. You normally think it's Singapore, oh, it'll be dry, it'll be fine. Or if it's going to be bad, it'll just be intermediate conditions. I think this is the heaviest rainfall I've ever seen at Singapore.
I remember I've done a race for another league before where I've seen dry tyres, intermediate tyres and wet tyres all used in the same race. It went through, I think it went from wet to dry to wet at various points. If that happens, we're in for an absolute cracker. And we're in for a long haul of a race. There could be a lot of stuff going on here. So Domi on pole position. He's obviously got the view everyone wants. He's not going to cope with the spray. I mean, you can see Aero. Well, I say you can see from Aero's point of view. You can't see a lot, really. And that's not with Domi going at full speed at the moment. They've really got to be careful in the spray. And there's a few drivers, as that is a lovely little drift from Aero. There's a few drivers who look to be struggling with oversteer in the intermediate conditions. You'd imagine that's going to be even more of a problem for them now. Perhaps... just maybe they might have changed the front wing angle on the grid just to maybe make a more understeery setup so it's a bit more stable.
I think so. You can do. The only problem is that if it's a very tricky race in these conditions, as Aero really puts on the style there, with that little bit of a power drift coming out of turn 19, yeah, you could do. There's a very limited amount of what you could do to change these setups in the wet weather conditions. You can change that front wing, you can change the diff. One part of the diff anyway, you can't change the diff entirely, and you can change little bits and bobs, but majorly the setup is pretty much locked into whatever you use in qualifying, bar those couple of things to try and help you out. So let's see if it does help them out. Let's see what changes there are, and let's see if they can all make it through turn 1, 2 and 3. Let's get this underway, Luke. I'm looking forward to this one.
Yeah, this should be an absolutely fantastic race. We've got heavy rain here at Singapore. No idea what the weather's going to be like at the end of the race, and the championship leader on pole position as he was last weekend. There's 5 lights on now, and we're underway at Singapore. Everyone moving away very, very gingerly indeed, but it is a good start from Domi on pole position. Aero in second. Johan's already got past Blizzard. He's now trying to go around the outside of Dario. Couldn't quite make that work out, but everyone looks to have tiptoed their way through turn 1 and 2. At this moment in time, it's still Domi in the lead, then Aero, Dario, Blizzard, Johan now trying to have a go back at Blizzard down the inside. He's alongside, he's almost on the curve at the moment. Blizzard cannot afford to be beaten by a few of these lower down the grid. He needs to be trying to work his way up at this moment in time, and you've got CRG Gamers just sitting in the background. Look at the spray from the Gamer's point of view at this moment in time. Can barely see what's going on ahead. What is going on ahead is Blizzard just about staying ahead of Johan, and now Gamer thinks I'll go all the way around the outside of you. Get squeezed into the wall there. CRG Gamer, surely after that he'll have some front wing damage, and I think indeed he has got an end plate missing, so that's a certain lap 1 pit stop for him. Zach and Dezo battling in the background as well. Domi not having to worry about any of this at the moment, though. He's just calmly trying to get away, and Aero following him at the moment. And all that battling means these front 2 and Dario have already built up a tiny bit of a gap.
They have indeed. It won't matter so much, and especially with DRS, it will more than likely be disabled. In fact, more than likely, it is certain it will be disabled in these treacherous conditions. But Gamer is really struggling out there in that Red Bull, down in 7th place right now. Surface is all over the back of him. Meanwhile, Zach then, who didn't set a lap time in qualifying, chucks it up the inside at turn 14. He's got the move done, and now he moves into 9th place. Remember, he didn't set a lap time in qualifying. He invalidated every attempt he had at setting a lap time in qualifying. He's now up into 9th place behind his teammate, who he'll be trying to get past as we make our way through. Suku, meanwhile, up 2 places from where he started. It's been a really good start from the Mercedes driver. He's looking to try and get past Johan up ahead of him. 9/10 of a second is the gap as now they fly their way through. And as you say, Gamer probably has that front wing damage. That's probably why he's going to be struggling all the way through. And you get to a wet race and you're really trying to prioritise the one stop. This is not a stop you need. You then need to make up, 24, 25 seconds in this race to try and make up that lost time. So on goes a new front wing, on goes the 4 set of wet tyres that are going to be on that car now. Fresh, of course, but that's his second set. And you can go back to the first set of wet tyres. They haven't set many laps. So, it's not the end of the world for Gamer, and there's still plenty of time, plenty of laps left in this one.
Yeah, plenty of laps. Always a possibility of a safety car. Always a possibility that we'll see the weather change at the moment, but it definitely still looks as wet as it did early on. But it is Domi. He's in the ideal situation at the moment. He's leading his race. His main rival in the championship, Blizzard, is currently in 4th position. As it stands going into tonight, Domi on 229, Blizzard on 176 points. There is a 53-point gap between them. If it finishes how they started in 1st and 4th position, that gap would grow quite significantly. It would be 66 points. And you've got to say, with 6 races to go, that is a pretty big gap for Domi to have and for Blizzard to try and close up. But still a long way to go in this race. Still, hopefully, plenty of action as well. And Suku definitely with a flying start. And I'm guessing Surface just got stuck behind CRG Gamer all of a sudden because he's in 7th place. He's already lost about 3.5 seconds to the Mercedes ahead. And you do see this quite often anyway in wet conditions. You do see the field spread out more often, partly because DRS isn't enabled and just partly because the lap times are so much longer. You saw last lap, Domi, 2 minutes 1 second around here.
Yeah, I mean, that was from a standing start, in fairness. We'll look at the lap times getting into sort of the 157s, possibly, as he is about to be proven wrong as Domi comes across the line. Let's sort of see it. Yeah, 57. So, oh, okay, that wasn't too bad. Aero sets the fast lap of the race, though, 57.5. And he's trying to chase down the Italian ahead of him, trying and find a way through. Not an easy overtaking opportunity is the entire Marina Bay street circuit. But that's not going to stop these drivers from at least trying.
No, they've got to give it a try, partly because, like I said, you don't want to be stuck in someone's spray for the entire of this race. You're going to get pretty fed up indeed. It's going to be pretty difficult to spot your braking zones. You can see all the drivers running pretty much low on fuel at the moment. They'll be using lean mix a lot coming out of the corners just to try and stop the wheel spin at this moment in time. Maybe a bit of lifting and coasting later in the race if they really need to, but they won't want to be doing that because it will just hold them up. And these front 4 are now starting to break away ever so slightly. We know Johan had an absolutely fantastic start. He got past Blizzard. He nearly got past Davio as well, but he's just slipping back ever so slightly. Suku in 6th, trying to get back onto the back of Johan. And Surface looks like he's a bit of a cork in the bottle at the moment. Zach had a fantastic start, gaining 3 places, one of the few to gain any places on this first lap, but he's not really moving forward all of a sudden. He shot past Dezo and Sam Gaynor so quickly, being a bit more careful with his teammate, understandably.
Yeah, that's not what you want. You know, it's already difficult in the wet weather conditions. You don't want to cause an inter-team fracas either. Dario is being chased down by Blizzard as well. 7/10 of a second is the gap. And just have a look at Aero, actually. Having a look at his stats for the season. He's only had 2 podiums so far. He got a 3rd place at the Chinese Grand Prix and then got a 2nd place in Austria. But his lowest finishing position in the entire season was 7th place at Zandvoort. Now, he's in some good form, and I'm thinking he's thinking himself that maybe there's something missing from that. That's a race win. I have to say, Luke, that the rain looks like it's eased off slightly. I'm not going to say anything though, because if it's not doing that on your screen, then I'm just creating false drama. But yeah, the rain has definitely eased off now going into turns 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, well, just looking on board with Aero, it's now like he can sort of see what he's doing when he's in Domi's slipstream instead of being completely blind. So just maybe it is lightening off ever so slightly, and then it is a completely different strategy question. How long do you stay on these set of wet tyres? Do you try and stretch them out long enough so you only have to make 1 stop for the intermediates? Or do you just pit in early, be on the right tyre for those conditions, but admit that you're probably going to have to make 2 stops in this race? Let's just put one thing. I'm glad I'm just talking about these drivers making these decisions, and I'm not the one having to make them myself, as CRG Gamer tries to recover his way from the back of the order on his own at the moment. We sort of gave him the commentator's curse by saying he was on a bit of good form, not finishing outside the top 4 since the Monaco Grand Prix. He's going to have one hell of a comeback here if he... Otherwise, that record's going to change.
Yeah, what's this we you're talking about? That was on you. I'm putting that down to you, Luke.
We're a team, Kieran. We're a team. We win together, we lose together. Blizzard's hoping he does plenty of winning. He's trying to get onto the back of Dario at the moment, but this was talked about earlier. It's difficult around here to overtake even when there is DRS. Your best opportunity is down into turn 7. In these conditions, it's probably pretty much your only opportunity, and then you've got to rely on the car in front, maybe having a bit of a bad exit through 5.
Yeah, the most important thing is going to be trying to be an annoying driver right behind someone, trying to make sure that they're not settled at all. Once they settle into a rhythm at Singapore, it does become a little bit easier. It's a long race, especially when you throw rain into the mix. It goes on, and every corner it just goes on and on and on. 31 laps here, you know, it's one of the longest in terms of length of time on the entire calendar. So keeping that concentration high is going to be critical for these drivers. And those walls, as Zach is finding out, are not very far away if you lose the back end like he just did. But, you know, what's losing the back end by adding a little bit more power in there? That seemed to have sorted the problem for Zach. He's still trying to chase down his teammate, but his teammate is starting to lose touch with Suku, and that's without Gamer having a wounded car and being the car in front. Gap between them is nearly 5 seconds between Surface and Suku. I wonder if there's any sort of Renault team orders that come into force here.
Yeah, I'm wondering that indeed. I mean, I imagine if we are going to see drivers go for the intermediate tyres soon, and the rain has definitely lessened quite significantly. It only looks a tiny bit heavier now than what we actually had at the start of the qualifying session, and they're just stuck in the spray a lot more. Surely if you're Zach, you think about going for the intermediate tyres because you're stuck in a train. Or if you're the man who's sort of marooned at the back of the field at the moment, you also think it is a risk for going towards the intermediate tyres. That is what CRG Game has done. Second pit stop after losing his front wing on lap 1. He might as well try something different here because this could really close him up to the back of the pack.
Yeah, and you're talking about seconds, that is. If you get the decision right, and it is the right time to go onto intermediate tyres, you can make up seconds around a track like this. It's a long lap, so there's plenty of time to make up if you're on the exact right tyres. So Game is now back out on circuit. He's on a set of intermediates. I still don't think, well, intermediates wear much quicker than wet tyres anyway, so still has to make one more stop in this race. But let's have a look and see what he's like on these intermediate tyres. A little bit of understeer going in towards turn 5, to be expected really. They're just fresh tyres. They have to take a couple of corners to warm up, but let's have a look and see, to be honest with you. It's going to be close. We're looking at a bit of a crossover point because there's not the huge amount of spray that there was at the start of this race. As I say that, Domi, Aero, Dario, Blizzard all into the pits. Johan, though, stays out. He's staying out on his wet weather tyres.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's also going to be interesting to see what the Renault team do. And what they have done is Zach, well, in fact, Zach and Surface have both stayed out on track. Now, that's very interesting because you'd have thought if Surface stayed out, Zach would have thought, right, I'm definitely getting into the pits here. I'm getting onto the intermediate tyres. I'm getting out of your way. I might gain a bit of time here. I'm very surprised that both of them haven't come in. Likewise with the Alfa Romeos, both of those staying out on track as well. Are we going to see another period of heavy rain and they're just going to try and get these wet tyres go a bit longer? Because on that lap, CRG Gamer, just looking at the intervals, he wasn't gaining lots of time to those on the wet tyres, but he wasn't losing any either. So you've got to imagine on this lap, the intermediates will be the faster tyre.
Yeah, I think it's always a tough one to call for drivers. They're really relying on trying to make sure that they have enough grip in their tyres, and that's not always easy to tell. It's a lot more difficult to tell when it's time to go onto a set of intermediates rather than a set of wet tyres. So you've really got to look for the visual cues. Is there standing water out on track? Well, looking at it, not really. So wet weather tyres are not going to be as useful in clearing that water because there's not enough water to keep them cool. You have overheating tyres, that exacerbates the wear. If they're waiting, if there is more rain on the horizon, if there's more heavy rain on the horizon, I should say, and they're trying to stick it out, they've got to manage those tyre temperatures because what time they'll save in pitting, they'll probably lose in trying to keep those tyres in check. So a bit of a balancing act here. As I say, it's a long lap here. You're looking at 1 minute 54s right now as the track is improving. So, yeah, it's a long old time to stay out on the wrong tyre. But I'll tell you what, Sam Gamer's not making it easy for Zach. He's now heading our way in towards 20 and 21. All the way through, right on the back of him is the Alfa Romeo. But there's one Renault coming into the pits, is it? Yep, it's Johan who's coming in. Zach's joining him in the pit lane, but what a bit of a rocky ride on those curbs. And Zach stopping for the first line on pit entry, and it almost caught Sam Gamer out, but he managed to stop that car. And a Renault double stack, well, that's not going to look good, so we'll have to wait a long old time before the Renault team could work on his car. Desso, meanwhile, now is the only driver that hasn't stopped, still on his wet weather tyres.
Yeah, still interesting for Desso, enjoying his moment in the sun at the moment, as Suku becomes the first person to pick up a penalty on the, now that he's warmed up those intermediate tyres just a slightly bit more, and that double stack, as you said, really not working for the Renault team. Zach's now around 6 seconds behind Sam Gamer, so definitely would have been worth one of them pitting last time around. They decided not to go for it, and Dezo, that's why he stayed out. He didn't want to get held up by the double stack. He thinks he's better served just holding on to those intermediate, well, these wet tyres, I should say. But if you wanted any proof that the intermediates are the fastest tyre at this moment in time, look at that from Gamer. Fastest lap of the race so far. He's flying his way round. And to say he's only made one more pit stop than some of these guys, he's only 15 seconds off the back of the pack at the moment, so definitely still in the chance of picking up some points, especially if we have another transition with the weather. We are on to lap 7 of the race. Domi is the net leader, 1.2 seconds ahead of Aero, so it does look like he gained a tiny bit of time in that pit stop period. Dario's fallen a tiny bit back as well, and him and Blizzard is going to be a battle to watch, I think, later on in the race. Blizzard knows he's got to maximise his point score if he wants any chance of taking the title this year.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. So he's got to try and make these decisions. He's got to make every decision a right one if he wants to have a chance of trying to get to that title. Domi has just been in great form. He's been Mr. Consistent all season long. He's only had one race win to his name this season, but when you're getting consistent podiums and consistent point scoring opportunities, you know, it really serves to note how consistent you've actually been through the season. Deso finally comes into the pit lane then as Domi sets the fast lap of the race, quickly taken away by Dario there, 53.7 for the McLaren. And they look to go now into turns 1, 2 and 3. So I wonder where Deso will emerge from this one. He'll probably emerge somewhere around the region of Zach, possibly right behind that Renault. It's a bit of a treacherous pit lane exit, so he's got to be careful there. Colder tyres going through a pit lane that's probably got more water on it than the entire track. So just got to be careful with that throttle application, and we are going to be racing on the pit lane exit. Zach finds his way through and manages to re-emerge ahead of Deso there. So Deso rejoining in 10th place. But at the moment, it is Domi who leads. Aero's keeping him good company. Dario and Blizzard not far off the leader pack either.
Yeah, one slight mistake could change everything here, and that's just another indication of how much better the wet tyres, well, the intermediates, I should say, were better than the wet tyres, because Deso, despite Zach doing a double stack, has still come out behind him, so those wets had really gone. And you can still see how damp the track is as well. They're doing 1 minute 53s at the moment. We were seeing times a lot quicker than that in qualifying on the intermediate tyres. We've seen about 147s, 148s off the drivers on the intermediate. So the fuel will account for that. Maybe still a bit damper as well, although the rain looks to have levelled out in intensity. It's not getting any lighter from what it was a few minutes ago. So if we are going to see any slick tyres, it is definitely only going to be towards the end of this race. It is all just closing up a tiny bit, with Domi being a bit slower than Aero last lap around, who was a bit slower than Dario, who's still dragging Blizzard along. These top 4 drivers separated by just 3 seconds at the moment. He's all getting very close indeed. Suku, he actually jumped up to 5th in that pit stop period, getting ahead of Johan, who stayed out that extra lap. And Surface is still seems to be struggling a bit more in these conditions, and he's now got Sam Gamer all over the back of him, as again, Domi originally set the fastest lap, and it now's Blizzard who holds on to that. And as long as he finishes in the top 10, we'll get that extra point. But I think we're going to see that fastest lap plummet by the end of this session.
Yeah, I don't think we'll decide what that fast lap is going to be until right at the very end, when the last car crosses the checkered flag. However, yeah, you can see Domi then set the fastest lap, then it was Aero, then it was Dario, then it was Blizzard, all in quick succession. So the further back you go in this pack, the quicker the car is. It's quite it's a bit of a weird one, that one. However, it does mean, though, that Domi doesn't have the same slipstream that Aero, Dario and Blizzard has. He's got clean air ahead of him, which in wet weather conditions is preferable, because it means you're not getting that spray from the car ahead straight onto your visor and straight into your vision. So in that sense, it's a good thing, but you are going to struggle on the straights without that. What's probably happened with these drivers are, of course, you can change the front wing at any point in... Oh, Aero there, getting it all sideways in towards the Anderson Bridge section, but he managed to pick that one up as he recovers that one. Now making their way on towards turn 14, still trying to put up a fight with the Italian of Domi, wanting a race win. 2 podiums so far for the Dutchman. He'll be wanting to correct that, to try and make one of them a win.
Yes, definitely, and Dario behind. He's only had one win this season. That was at the Spanish Grand Prix. He got that from pole position. Who knows? Who knows whether he can maybe take a win from outside pole position. This time he's still in third place, and that little mistake has just allowed him to close up ever so slightly from Aero. Of all of that annoying gap that we see quite often, especially around tracks like Singapore where there's a lot of high downforce, even more so in these wet conditions, they can't get within half a second, and that's when you really start seeing the power of the slipstream. As Domi now fastest lap of the race, 1 minute 52.8, suggesting we are more around the conditions that they were in qualifying, and we might not therefore be too far away from the slick tyres. And that's another question, of course. Let's say it stopped raining on this lap. Do you go for the mediums or would you go for the hards?
Oh, we got a spinner. Dario's around.
Big spin from Dario. Luckily he's got all his wheels on. His front wing, on the other hand.
It's a different matter, isn't it? Well, yeah, he dropped it on the exit of turn 5, spun up those rear tyres, and the next destination for him was the wall, as Suku will inherit 4th place, and that's going to be a long, long trip back to the pit lane with a wounded car who's going to lose a mountain of time here for Dario, as well, he was, of course, in 3rd place. That's now handed that position to Blizzard, so he's now up onto the podium spots. He can now try and chase down Aero for his own, but at the moment, the field is evenly spread out. Closest battle so far out there is between Surface and Gamer. That's the battle for 7th place. They're just making their way towards that turns in 10 and 11 section just before the Anderson Bridge. As you see there's just a little bit of a wall on the right hand side just as you're about to turn in that flicks out, and if you're distracted at any point, that will really catch you out. You can easily catch your front right hand wheel on that little bit of wall that just sticks out as you're turning in for the corner. So got to be careful about that one, as Dario there doesn't put up too much of a fight against Johan, who now finds himself into 5th place. But lap number 10 of this race, Domi still leads ahead of Aero. 1.6 seconds now is the gap between the Haas and the Racing Point behind, as he makes his way all the way through turns 22 and 23 across the start finish line. 52.6 there from Domi. That's a 10th and a half quicker than his previous attempt the fastest lap. Aero, though, still 1.6 behind, lost a little bit of time to the car behind, as Blizzard now picks up a 3-second time penalty. Now, we saw him in the Italian Grand Prix not pick up a single penalty, but today he's going to have at least 3 seconds added to the end of his race.
Yeah, that's unfortunate for him, and we've seen that a few times this season from Blizzard. He picks up some penalties. Thankfully for him, at this moment in time, the closest car to him is Suku, 6 seconds behind, and he has a penalty. But if we get a late safety car, those penalties could really cost you. Dario in the pitch, changing his front wing, another set of intermediate tyres are going on the McLaren car, and he is now in last place behind Gamer, the final one of our 11 runners at the moment. And this could be interesting from Blizzard. Now, we might get to see whether he was being held up in the spray slightly by Dario or not, as we try and see if he can catch up to Aero. And to be honest, he's not really making any inroads. That gap seems to be staying fairly constant at just hovering above and below 2 seconds at various points during this lap. Further down the field, Sam Gamer still behind Surface at the moment. The rain is still definitely falling. We're not going to get any slick tyres yet. We don't know if we are going to get slick tyres, of course. We're just spitballing here. It might end up being intermediates towards the end of the race. Either way, there's going to be a few interesting strategy choices as Sam Gamer decides to go slightly sideways over the Anderson Bridge. That's definitely ensures there's some heat in those rear intermediates, but it's not the way you want to be going around for the fastest lap, as that allows Surface just to stretch away ever so slightly.
Yeah, and obviously not making mistakes here at Singapore is, more crucial than any other track on the calendar. Losing a front wing could be the difference between you getting a podium and you finishing outside of the points. It really is that simple, and just a little mistake is all it takes. A little bit of a lack of concentration, that is all that can happen for you to lose that concentration, lose that little bit of front wing. And around a track where downforce is so needed, there's so many mid-speed corners here, if you get any sort of front wing damage, you are losing a load of time per lap. So it is crucial that drivers do not make friends with the wall and do not give them a kiss on the way through to a corner. So they've got to make sure they keep on the track, keep it as clean as possible, and keep those mistakes to a minimum.
Yeah, you're definitely going to practice social distancing with the walls around this circuit, otherwise you're going to get yourselves in a bit of trouble. And unfortunately for us, a lot of the field seems to be fairly distant at the moment. Blizzard, he just has a little bit of a slide coming through turn 9 there. He's closed up to Aero ever so slightly. That gap's still just above 1.5 seconds. Aero trying to keep Domi honest at the moment, but they're all just going around at a very steady pace at the moment. You get the funny feeling they're just dictated by the grip. Obviously, as they're going round, they'll all be pushing incredibly hard. Just have to wait and see what's going to happen. And I'm going to say it first, Kieran, because I know you don't trust your monitor at times. I think it stopped raining.
You know what? You took the words out of my mouth. Yeah, it has stopped raining at Marina Bay, so we could be seeing in a couple of laps' time drivers go onto a set of dry tyres, and this is possibly one of the worst chances. This is probably one of the worst times for it to stop raining, because now we're approaching that half race distance point. Now, medium tyres, it's going to be touch and go. Hard tyres will get you to the end, but they will be slower than the mediums. Mediums, however, well, Domi here is coming into the pit lane straight away. That rain has stopped on this same lap, and Domi's into the pits. Aero is following him through, so too is Blizzard. So the top 3 into the pits then, I can only assume, this is going to be for a set of dry tyres. But what goes on the car? Hards are ready for the Racing Point crew. Medium tyres is that for the Haas crew as tyres go on? No, it is the hard tyres that go on. So away goes Domi. What about Blizzard though? Blizzard onto mediums. So this top 3 battles just got a little bit interesting again. Domi on hards, Aero on hards, Blizzard on mediums. Let's see how they go from here.
Oh, and Sam Gamer's got a 5-second penalty there for a severe collision with surface. I imagine that's on the way into the pits. And we saw something similar at the last race, actually, with Sam and I believe it was Suku. That time, though, it was Suku going into the back of Sam. This has been the other way around. He's on the hard tyres, and now there's a double stack having to go on here. Again, Dezo now has to wait for his teammate Gamers back into the pits for the 3rd time. He's also going for a set of mediums, so we are seeing quite a mixture throughout the field at the moment. I think that's mediums we saw on Dario's car. We've got as close to a 50-50 split as we can get. 6 drivers on the hard tyres, 5 on the mediums. Most notably, though, the man in 3rd place is not really anyone around him on the medium tyres at the moment. He's just got to go for things now. He's got to get these overtakes done as quickly as possible.
That to me signifies that he's going to stop one more time in this race. So he's got to make those mediums work. Meanwhile, Zach then is on the back of Sam Gamer. They're going to go side by side in towards turn 7. Zach goes the long way round.
Sorry to interrupt, Kieran. There was a bit of contact there between Blizzard and Aero. I think Blizzard's got away without any damage, but that's an absolute miracle there. He sort of got squashed in between the wall at the Anderson Bridge coming around the hairpin, and I think he's got away. He's got away without any major damage. I'm not quite sure. His right-hand side made contact with Aero. The left side made contact with the wall. That's a bit awkward for him. It has given Domi, though, a bit of breathing room because Aero was starting to close up to Domi. He'd got that gap down below a second. Of course, DRS is now enabled. So you imagine turn 7 is going to be the best opportunity now for Blizzard.
Yeah, you would think so, but if he's managed to get away with that with no damage whatsoever, that's going to be a huge sigh of relief from him. However, of course, visually, we might not be able to see any damage, but there could be a slight, winglet that's off the car, anything like that can affect the performance. Zach did make his move. He completed it around the outside at turn 7, although he was off track when he did it, but Sam Gamer was right up to the curb, wasn't willing to give him any room whatsoever, so real choice for Zach there. He's got the move done though. He's up into 7th.
Yeah, he is. Blizzard using his DRS to try and close up to the back of Aero, who had, to be fair, caught up to the back of Domi fairly quickly as well. So Aero there in 2nd place. Now this is ideal for Domi. He's probably going to want Aero to be within a second because that's going to give the Racing Point the DRS, and that's going to make it a lot harder for Blizzard to overtake. And for the championship, that's what Domi wants. If Domi's all of a sudden 2 seconds up the road, Blizzard's probably going to breeze past Aero, breeze up to the back of Domi, and breeze past him as well.
Yeah, that's true as well. It's sort of a strategy, a strategic approach now from the Italian. So does he pull away? Does he try and push as hard as he can? Or does he just let Aero just sort of stay behind the Haas for now, as Aero will not be looking to play ball with Domi. He'll be looking to try and make an overtake happen at this moment in time. So he won't be interested in playing these games. He'll just be wanting to take the win for himself. He just happens to find himself right in the middle of a championship battle, but he won't care. He's having a lot of fun out there. Suku, meanwhile, is on the hard tyres. Now, he's 10.4 behind that battle for the lead of the race. If these cars start battling, they'll start losing time to the car behind. Suku could be in this one just yet.
Yeah, we might even have a chance with tyre wear, obviously, on the back of Blizzard if Blizzard can't get his tyres towards the end. So could still maybe get a podium here. On board now with the battle of the gamers. It's Sam Gamer versus CRG Gamer at this moment in time, and you can just see the pace of those mediums. CRG Gamer catching right up to the back of Sam. Zach has managed to pull away 5 seconds at this moment in time. It's getting very close between these. It's getting very close between Blizzard and Aero this time around. Blizzard going around the outside of turn 6 because that will give him the inside line for turn 7 on the brakes down the inside. Not a lot Aero could do about that, and that is for Williams. Up into second place. Now he's got to try and think about where he can get past Domi, because at this moment in time, around this circuit, the deltas on the tyres are quite dramatic. A, because of how long the circuit is. B, because of how tyre hungry it is. So Blizzard, in free air, you've got to say, he'd probably be about a second and a half faster than Domi, so needs to get this move done. He'd ideally like to do it heading around the next corner, but it looks as though he's just going to be a bit too far behind for that to be a possibility.
Yeah, he'd ideally want those tyres to last as long as possible, but those tyres will start falling away much quicker and much more, much sharper decline in those tyre performance than the hard tyres. By the way, Gamer did get a move done. That's the Gamer in the Red Bull. He got a move done down the inside of Sam Gamer in towards turn 1 and got the move done for 8th place. So the Red Bull driver is now up the field. Oh no, don't do this. It started raining again.
Well. Yeah, I don't know what to say about this.
That makes sense then. That would make sense about why nearly half the field went onto the medium tyres, is that they saw more rain on the horizon. So that is going to be a move that could pay off for Blizzard. If he can try and take the lead of this race before the track gets a little bit too slippery for those slick tyres, he could be in control of this race when we go on to, of course, if we go on to a set of intermediate tyres. There have been occasions in the past where it rains, but it's not quite wet enough inters, and sticking out on the slicks is the better option. Here comes Blizzard, though, looking for a move down the inside of turn 7, turned into a half-hearted move down the inside of 7. He's going to have to go the long way around into 8, and those half-hearted moves are so dangerous. Now he's going to have to go around the outside at turn 9. He's just trying to be a pest here. Now, with that overtake button, looking for a move up the inside of turn 10. This isn't an overtaking opportunity. Blizzard doesn't care, though. Up the inside into 10. Now around the outside into 11. Domi holds firm and will not let that Williams through. Domi still in the lead of this one.
Yeah, just about hanging on at the moment. What Domi does have an advantage is about 25% more battery charge at the moment. So you can see Blizzard, he's dropped below 10% at the moment. He's starting to clip on his ERS. He hasn't got that full 150 brake horsepower from the hybrid powertrain to use to try and get ahead of Domi. I'm imagining this is only going to be a short shower, and those on the mediums are thinking, hopefully it's heavy enough that we have to go on to the intermediates. Those on the hards are thinking, please God, do not rain that hard, please stay, so I can get onto these dry tyres. Otherwise, it could be in a lot of trouble, because you can just see at the moment how much more pace Blizzard has got around the corners, because of course, in these damp conditions, he'll be able to keep his tyre temperatures a lot easier than Domi, who might just start struggling, even if the rain stays at this intensity. Blizzard gets a penalty. I don't think he'll care too much, because he's got the inside line, and he's got the lead of this race. With 15 laps remaining, Blizzard is in the lead.
Yeah, nice move at the end for Blizzard, and you saw him all the way through that third sector. He was trying to find a different line, just trying to put the Haas driver off, and in the end, he's got the move down in towards turn 1 and takes over the lead of this race. Domi, though, looking for a move down the inside at turn 5, or turn 6, and he's got the move done. That was the narrowest of gaps, and Domi said, you know what, I'm going to stick my car there, see what happens, and he's been rewarded with the lead of the race again.
Yeah, just, I think, using that extra electrical energy that he had, he doesn't anymore. He was able to get the lead of this race, but you can see he's even having to go defensive here into turn 10. Blizzard just looks really quick, as you'd expect on acceleration, out of the corners using the grip in those rear tyres. That has managed to get past Surface now, so the two Reynolds swapping around, and Surface, again, he looks like he's wobbling a bit on his hard tyres at the moment. So the Reynolds swapping over for 6th and 7th. Blizzard, he's got a bit of a gap down the inside here. I'm surprised Domi left the door open, because you don't have to invite Blizzard twice for a move. He's back into the lead of this race, and now Aero's trying to get himself involved in this. He's just been watching and thinking, right lads, now it's my turn to try and make this a freeway battle for the lead. But like you said, Kieran, if these start battling quite a lot, maybe, just maybe, this will allow Suku to close up ever so slightly. We'll check the penalty situation at the moment. He's got 3 seconds, as has Zach Sam Gamer. Again, penalties looking to be costing him. He is on 11. Aero has 3. Blizzard is on 6 seconds at this moment in time, so Blizzard will be very happy that he's got the free air because he can use those medium tyres and he can try and get himself out of penalty range of definitely Aero and possibly Dommy as well.
It's going to be a big ask for sure, but at the moment, Dommy's main focus is to stay within DRS range, and you know what? I don't think he has. That was just over 1 second as he crossed the detection point there, so no DRS now for Dommy. That was a key part in how he got that overtake back on Blizzard. So Aero now finds the DRS on Dommy, and now we'll try and battle for second place. How much of an impact this second bout of rain has in this race is yet to be seen, but Blizzard ran very deep there in towards turn 7 there, so not the ideal thing to be doing for Blizzard. He wants to keep it as clean as possible. Almost made contact with the turn 8 wall on the outside, so gotta keep it nice and clean now, Blizzard. He's worked hard to get this lead of the race, and I'm sure he will not be willing to just throw it away like that. 1.2 the gap between the leaders at the moment, and it looks like it's going to increase because Blizzard is on those medium tyres. Rain's starting to get just a little bit heavier now, a little bit heavier than it was a couple of minutes ago, so you can just about see now there's some water coming off the tyres as they go through the tarmac here. So all the signs are there that this lack of grip is going to have an effect sooner rather than later.
Yeah, definitely. You can see Zach getting ahead of Surface. He's now got the gap up to 2.3 seconds, and CRG Gamer is all over the back of Surface at the moment. He's going to open his DRS now. He's going to use his ERS. Is he going to be able to send one down the inside here to get 7th position? It's very late from Gamer. A bit of a half-hearted move, a bit similar to what we saw Blizzard do. Surface left in the space, so the Red Bull driver has to settle for 8th position at the moment. You've got Dezo trying to close up to the back of his teammate as well for 9th and 10th with Dario. We've had that spin, obviously, earlier on as Sam Gamer getting really wild there coming out of that corner. Dario trying to work his way up the order. There's so many little intriguing battles going on at this moment in time. DRS is still unable, so that is still a key indicator that it's probably dry enough for these slick tyres at the moment. We're not seeing the drivers really struggle. Blizzard now 1.7 seconds ahead of Dommy, and Aero has dropped back a bit as well. The rain still continuing to fall. It's then Suku, Yo and Zach, Surface, CRG Gamer, but I think very shortly it could be CRG Gamer and Surface. Just look at the grip he's got there, just getting caught on each other, and I think it's a good job the Red Bull driver left it off. Otherwise we could have seen the Renault spinning around.
Yeah, absolutely. But Gamer now will be right in the slipstream with that DRS wide open, looking down the inside through the kink of 6, and he's got the move done then. So Gamer up now into 7th place. Obviously had to replace his front wing very early on in the race. He's now up to 7th place, 3.7 seconds behind Zach now, so plenty of time to go. However, this rain, well, I wonder when those tyres are going to sort of fall off. Well, not exactly fall off the cliff, because that implies they're falling off because of wear, but how long will it be before the water on the track starts to play a part in how effective these slick tyres are? At the moment, it looks like it's only costing them around about a second per lap, which is not a lot considering this is Singapore and it's one of the longest tracks in terms of time out there. So if you have a slight problem, it's going to be exacerbated by so much, especially around Singapore. But let's have a look at Blizzard then as he makes his way around the final 2 corners on towards the start-finish line.
Ooh,
well.
interestingly, Dommy and Aero are coming into the pits.
They are. And I think that's because, well, Blizzard lost 9.5 seconds on that lap alone because of the conditions right now. Dommy and Aero clearly feel that DRS is going to be deactivated sooner rather than later, which is the telltale sign that the crossover is here. So Aero stops in for the intermediate tyres. The Haas also does the same. Suku's into the pits as well to put on a set of intermediate tyres. Zach in the Renault has stayed out, so he's hoping to try and re-emerge or try and go through turn 1 ahead of Dommy, which he has done. But now, here's the interesting part. Dommy will be on intermediate tyres, but right now he'll have the DRS that Zach is helping him with as he makes his way through 6 and then towards turn 7. Now, what are we going to see here as Dario speeds into the pit lane? 5-second penalty will be added to the end of his race. So, well, Dommy now is just going to try and keep his head down and keep those tyres in good nick. They should last 12 laps. They should last to the end of the race if it comes to that. But at the moment, Blizzard and Zach staying out there. Around 30 seconds is the gap between Blizzard and Dommy. The only problem is, though, that whilst Zach will be helping Dommy down the straight, as he now moves across to let the Haas driver through in towards turn 10. And there you go, DRS disabled. So this is the perfect opportunity for the crossover point. But where Zach was being that sort of DRS help for Dommy down the straight, it was all being undone and worsened through the corners. So that's where Dommy would have lost the time. Is it enough time lost for Blizzard to re-emerge back into the lead, or will Dommy have got the one-lap undercut? Absolutely spot on. We're about to find out. Race leader Blizzard is into the pits. Yellow flag in sector 2 there. And that is going to be Sam Gamer, who's found a visit to the wall. And he has lost a bit of front wing, has he? On the left-hand side, I believe that is. But yes, we'll have a check about that in a second. Actually, it doesn't look like there's any damage whatsoever. But we're now making our way into the pit lane. Blizzard will be putting on a set of intermediate tyres. He makes his way to the last stall in the garage. How about Dommy then? He's going to make his way towards the final 2 corners here. It's going to be very, very close. It's going to be very close on a greasy surface. Blizzard, off goes the limiter. He now makes his way towards turn 1. Now Dommy is going to fly through with the ideal line in through 1, 2 and 3, but Blizzard has rejoined in the lead of this race. So was the time lost for Dommy behind Zach enough for Blizzard to head the field after the pit stop? You bet it was. Blizzard re-emerges back in the lead.
I think it's also the fact that Blizzard, I mentioned earlier, the fact that Blizzard was on the medium tyres. He gained about a second on Dommy in the final sector on the lap where Dommy came into the pit. So the hards had just got to the crossover point before the medium tyres, because you'll notice as well Zach also stayed that extra lap longer. So I think if the track had stayed at that sort of conditions, it was the medium tyres were the best to be on, then the intermediates, then the hard tyres, because the hards were really struggling to keep their tyre temperature, and then, like you said, just getting stuck behind Zach, costing Dommy ever so slightly, but he has no penalties. Blizzard has 9 seconds at the moment, so we're currently dropped to 3rd position in this race. So still needs to try and build a bit of an advantage. Now, though, he's got to do it in the damp conditions on the intermediate tyres. And with the way this race has gone so far, Kieran, who's to say we're not going to get an absolute thunderstorm in the final 2 laps, and we're going to have to see the wet tyres make a reappearance?
What's the phrase they say? Start as you mean to go on. Are we going to see a progression to heavy rain towards the end of this race? Well, we're about to find out. We're only 11 laps from the checkered flag, 10 and a bit if you're picky. Blizzard leads the way ahead of Dommy. This is what Blizzard needs, though. He needs to finish ahead of Dommy. But as you previously said, Luke, that 9 seconds for Blizzard is going to be a real sticking point for the Williams driver. And in fact, as well, it could be worsened if Aero manages to stay in contact with the top 2. He, on the other hand, has got 6 seconds worth of penalties, so he'd need to be within 3 seconds of Blizzard in order to take advantage of that. Suku would have to be 6 seconds behind Blizzard, and Johan, though, 9 seconds behind. Well, he's a long, long way down the field. He's in a bit of a race of his own. So is Suku, to be fair. No one really ahead of them to challenge, no one really behind. They've just got to make sure that complacency, they've got to guard against it, because it really can make a mistake when you least want to, but that's when you find that you're concentrating the least. If that made any sense, answers on a postcard.
Yeah, definitely. It's a bit like Ayrton Senna famously at Monaco when he was nearly a minute ahead in 1988. And because he was on his own, his concentration dipped ever so slightly and very easily ended up in the wall. So we saw Blizzard last time. He was expertly driving on his own. We'll see if Suku and Johan can do such a good job. Great job from everyone who's avoided penalties at the moment. Got to say, a good recovery as well from CRG Gamer and Dario, recovering from their damage. In the early stages, they're currently in 7th and 9th respectively. 10 laps to go. We are on board with the championship leader, who all he has to do is stay within 9 seconds of Blizzard, ensure that Aero doesn't get too far ahead either if he makes an overtake, and it will be another victory for Dommy and would be a huge step to securing this AOR driver's title. This is the main battle out on track. These 3 have pretty much been together the entire race so far. Dommy was in there as well, obviously, in the early... No, Dario was in there, I should say, before he made his mistake in the early stages, breaking his front wing. But these 3 have been so evenly matched, and it's probably not too surprising that they're going to end up being the podium. It's just we don't know which order yet after penalties, and we definitely don't know which order it's going to be out on track.
No, we definitely don't. And we've got 10 laps to go to decide it. 9 and a bit if you are picky. As Blizzard now makes his way towards the final 2 corners. He'll start lap 23 in a moment's time. And we'll make our way now once again down the start finish straight, down towards turns 1 and 2. So Blizzard here has just got to try and make sure he just pushes as hard as he possibly can. That's all he can do right now. Domi, though, has the upper hand. There's driver with a penalty ahead of him. There's a driver with a penalty behind him. Suku, who's quite a way back, but could still join this battle if they start battling the top 3. He's got 6 seconds worth of penalties. So, as you say, for Domi, all he has to do is stay in relative contact with Blizzard up ahead of him. As long as he can see him, really, that's a good sign. But he could, towards the end, if Aero starts to battle him, just let him go. 3 seconds of penalties worth for Aero there. You're not going to lose 3 seconds in 1 lap around Singapore. So, yeah, bit of an interesting one for Domi. It's not like he can relax, but he's got an easier time of it than anybody else. Yellow flags in Sector 1. As we just take a look back there, I think that was Surface, was it?
I think it might have been Zach. I think it might have been Zach. I was about to say Zach looked as though Gamer might have been catching up to him ever so slightly, but it looks like that's not going to be a problem now. The red ball is up into 6th, Zach down into 7th, but gets away with any damage. And I was just thinking then, we've had pretty much everything in this race. We haven't had a virtual safety car or a safety car, and Blizzard will definitely be hoping we don't get a full safety car, because in them 9 seconds of penalties, they become a much bigger problem. At the moment, they'd only cost him 2 places. If there's a safety car in the next couple of laps, he's going to lose time to Domi, he's going to lose to Aero, he's probably going to lose to Suku, Yohan, Gamer. He might lose to everyone in the field, depending on how late the safety car comes, apart from Sam Gamer, who looks marooned at the back of the field now with 9 seconds of penalties after serving that pit lane speeding penalty early on. This is still going to be interesting. Everyone's got to be careful. The cars are getting lighter, so you're tempted to push that little bit more. And the rain is definitely come down heavier again. I would not be surprised, you know, if we have to see 4 wet tyres at the end of this race.
We're on lap 24. We've got to run until lap 31, of course. That means there's 8 laps to go in this race. Now, there comes a point and there comes a time where not pitting is the more viable strategy to get yourself to the end in the quickest time possible. We've already seen that the pit stops here will cost you anywhere between 26 and 28 seconds. So that's a lot of time to lose in the pit lane. The only problem is, as the rain gets heavier, and as we possibly approach that crossover point between the intermediates and the wet weather tyres, will it be worth the drivers pitting in, or is it worth them sticking it out on those intermediate tyres to get themselves to the end? And Zach has retired from the race. He's come back to the pit lane to retire the car, so we will be down to 10 runners. So now all you have to do is get to the checkered flag and you've got yourself a point. Fastest lap of the race, of course. I doubt we're going to see that improve, considering we had a bit of dry running in this race. 37.282 from Gamer in 6th place, currently holding the fastest lap of the race bonus point. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens with drivers out on circuit, when we get to that crossover point. I'm going to say when, because it is going to be when now. The rate the rain is being chucked down on the circuit from the sky. Will drivers actually pit in, or will they realise it might cost them just too much time that they cannot make up?
It might cost them too much time that they cannot make up, but there's also that extra security you get from having the wet tyres clearing the water away. The intermediates might end up still being a second or 2 a lap faster, but you might feel you can push more to your 100% limit on the wet tyres more consistently. We'll have to wait and see, because it is absolutely bucketing it down at the moment as Domi thinks about it then for a second. Blizzard decided to go straight on Aero as well. I was really hoping, to be honest, when I saw Zach heading towards the pit lane, I was really hoping he was going to be the driver going to risk it on the wet tyres. It'd definitely be worth it for someone further down the order, someone that's sort of on their own at the moment. Maybe a Sam Gamer, maybe Dezo, maybe even one of Suku or Yohan at the moment, because Yohan is, or Suku for example, 13 seconds behind Aero. He's 13 seconds ahead of Yohan. He might be one of the first drivers to go for it, because if it doesn't work out, he wasn't on the podium at least, he's probably only going to lose 1 place. If it does work out, he could have a lot to gain and could even maybe get himself on the podium. We'll have to wait and see. We've had 3 weather changes already. We've still got 6.5 laps to go. It looks like we're going to have another weather change as well. The Singapore Grand Prix definitely knows how to be entertaining, despite not always offering the most overtaking.
Well, definitely, and it's kept the drivers on their toes. They haven't really had a chance to relax, and any rhythm they've got into is exactly when the weather changes. So it's kept everybody on their toes. It's made sure that the strategies here, they just go out the window. You're just reacting at this point to whatever the weather happens, and you're trying to react the best. There is an element of luck about it, because obviously the track is always changing. And if you get to that crossover point and you've just passed the pit lane, you're in for a lap of pain. But if you get to that crossover point, you know, at turn 20 here at Singapore, you can then come into the pit and get yourself onto a set of tyres and match the strategy. Sam Gamer's the first to blink. He's in, and on go some wet tyres.
It's always good to see someone go for it. Now, whether he's gone for it early or whether that was just Jeff, who... We always criticise Jeff when you're playing the game. One thing he's pretty bang on is telling you when to come into the pits for a set of slick tyres, intermediate tyres, or wet tyres when the weather is going to change. Blizzard is carrying on another lap, as is Domi, as is Aero. So that suggests to me they may be thinking what you were saying, that they're not going to gain enough on the wet tyres at the moment, because it's not... We saw in the pit stops, it wasn't a massive change earlier on from wets to intermediates. It was about 2 to 3 seconds, and I imagine it's going to be something similar. And given the fact that the pit stop here is around 25 seconds, you're not going to gain loads, but you've got lots to lose if it gets too wet for the intermediate tyres and you just aquaplane off towards the tyre barriers. Of course.
Johan's in. Well, so Johan is in the Ferrari, so this looks like it's going to be wet weather tyres, extreme wets for the Ferrari. He comes into the pits then. So this is him from 5th place saying, let's give it a shot, let's try it. 5 laps to go in this race, sorry, 6 laps to go in this race, 5 and a bit if you are picky. But yeah, the Ferrari's now on wet weather tyres. We'll see how that goes as he makes his way down the pit lane exit. He'll rejoin in 8th place behind Dario, but let's see what that pace is like for Johan and Sam Gamer. See if the wet weather tyres are the tyres to be on. With the top 3 though, there's going to be a sense of nervousness. For Blizzard, he's at the very front of the pack. He might have seen cars come into the pits, but he won't necessarily know that drivers are now on wet weather tyres. He'll be solely relying on his own instinct to try and figure out whether he should come into the pits, put on a set of wet weather tyres, or whether he just sticks it out there. And the problem with being the first person and the leader of the race is you've got the most to lose. People behind you can react to you. But when you're leading the race, you've got to make the decision for yourself. You've got to think about whether it is the right time to pit in or whether I should stick it out. For everyone else behind you, your decision could help their decision. You've got no help whatsoever. You've just got to try and work with what you can at the very front of the pack. We're about to pass the pit lane entrance once again, and it is absolutely chucking it down on the circuit. But in terms of standing water, I can't really see a lot around the circuit. It is more damp on the outside of the track, but in terms of standing water, I can't see a lot out there.
No, definitely not. I've just seen the times, you can see the sector times pretty much on the left-hand side adjusting as they're going around every corner. Johan is definitely catching up to Dario. There is no argument about that. He's only caught up about 1.5 seconds on this lap, so he times that by 2, 3 seconds with 5 laps to go. You ain't doing a 15-second pit stop around here, so it's not worth it. Yes, it's only going to get wetter, but we are in that point that you mentioned, Kieran. The wet tyres are without a doubt the fastest tyre. It's whether there's enough laps in the race left that you can make an advantage up. Sam Gamer has picked up another 3-second time penalty despite having the wet tyres on, so clearly just going a bit too fast around some of these corners. He is on, though, to get another points finish to go with his best finish of the season last time around. Blizzard's just got to be careful. He doesn't want to make a mistake here. And you imagine Domi and Aero are thinking... Well, actually, what are Domi and Aero are thinking? If Blizzard goes in this lap, if you're Domi, do you think, he's my rival, I might as well follow what he does? Or do you think, I've got a fantastic chance to take the win out on track here?
Yeah, that's always going to be an interesting thing, isn't it? But if you make a decision, it makes other drivers think. However, the later in this race you make that decision, the less time you have to recover the time you've lost in the pit lane. And as you've already discussed, Luke, there just simply isn't enough time for these top 3. They are going to go to the end of this race on these intermediate tyres if they can, so long as it doesn't absolutely bucket it down and the tyres start aquaplaning. If there's just even a slight amount of grip in these tyres, they're going to stick with it. End of. But yeah, I can't see them really pitting in now. They've got such a distance between everybody else. It's not worth the risk at this moment in time. Domi needs the points to try and extend his gap. In fact, to try and shorten it down. Blizzard also needs the points more, so he's going to be a little bit more nervous. He knows that a decision could cost a championship, and he doesn't want to be finishing so low down the table when he's already got 9 seconds worth of penalties next to his name to be added on at the end of this race. So, yeah, as we head with 4 laps to go, I mean, watch out, because these drivers are going to be fighting the elements and fighting the little bit of grip they have in these tyres.
Yeah, what is going to be an interesting battle as well is currently it's for 6th and 7th between Surface and Dario. But very shortly you're going to see a Ferrari just pop into the background on a set of wet tyres going about 3 or 4 seconds a lap faster than them at the moment. And that is Johan, obviously, who should, when he catches these two up, just breeze past the Renault and the McLaren driver. But he might not be used to how early they're going to have to be braking in these conditions. 4 laps to go then for the leaders. It is still Blizzard, Domi, then Aero. Domi looking to take the win on penalties at the moment. Suku, Gamer, Surface, Dario, Johan, Deso and Sam Gamer. The 10 remaining runners. Zach retiring in the pit lane, and I wonder if he's thinking maybe I should have just hung on a lot longer, put the wet tyres on and tried something different, because with that damage it would have been a perfect opportunity to come into the pits. Dario looking very quick at the moment, just a bit of understeer through turn 5 in that dirty air, and that's all Surface needed to just stay away. He's hanging on to the 6th place out on track at the moment. He's probably going to get it on penalties anyway from Dario, but you can see Johan is now just 2 seconds behind these. And I think the rain's actually got a slightly bit lighter again.
It has. It has. It's the race where the rain can't decide what to do. Yes, it has slightly got lighter, the rain, and this is also another reason why the drivers were probably staying out on their intermediate tyres, is because they saw a little rainbow at the end of it where the rain eases off. So, well, Blizzard, Domi and Aero, obviously the grip won't come back straight away. They've got to be careful. You can be lulled into that false sense of security when the rain starts to fall away again. You can think, oh, well, there must be grip into this corner, when actually it's still the same levels of grip we had when it was absolutely chucking it down. So that means for Johan, for Deso and for Sam Gamer, they won't be pitting in now. They'll try and make these wet weather tyres last to the end of the race. The problem they'll have now is tyre temperatures. Don't be surprised if you see those 3 cars going right over to the track limits on either the left or the right to try and find any standing water to cool down those tyres.
Yes, I think Johan's going to be having to push for track limits anyway soon. You can see he's caught up to the back of Dario, who's just picked up another 3-second time penalty for the McLaren driver. That currently puts him on 8 seconds, so he was going to drop behind Johan anyway. And you can see the others there. Blizzard 9, Aero 3, Suku 6, Dario on 8 and Sam Gamer on 12 seconds at the moment. So this looks like it's going to be a really good battle in the final few laps. Can Johan hold those wet tyres enough just to get ahead of Dario and Surface? I said it was maybe worth a risk, because if it went well, you gain a lot. If not, well, you weren't getting a podium anyway. It was definitely a bit of a shot at glory for Johan, but unfortunately it looks to have cost him 3 places, maybe only 1. If you can squeeze past Surface and Dario there, you can see just lighting up the rear tyres. It's definitely very wet out there, probably at borderline now between the intermediates and the wet tyres. Out in front, Blizzard's just controlling this race at the moment, and Domi just knowing he doesn't have to take the victory on track, knowing he can just sit behind at this moment in time, knowing he can react to whatever Blizzard does. If Blizzard breaks about 10 metres earlier, Domi can do the same. He doesn't really have to be the first one going into the unknown in these conditions, because every lap, every corner is going to be slightly different to the time before.
Yeah, absolutely. As the track evolves, of course, as the rain eases off through this race, and it really has eased off into that little bit of a drizzle now. Very, very light rain pattering on the circuit, but Blizzard now starts the penultimate lap of this race, lap 30 of 31. Blizzard leads though from Domi and Aero, and well, Aero, keep an eye on that time between Blizzard and Domi. It's right on that bubble of around 2.5 seconds at the moment. Remember, Aero needs to make sure that that gap is well, it's now less than 6 seconds, so as long as he keeps it under 6 seconds, he will be grabbing that 2nd place, and he will match his best result of the season so far. Any more than that, if he makes mistakes, then that will cost him a lot of time in the long run. Suku as well. I don't think we've mentioned Suku. He had a bit of a nightmare in Italy at the pit lane entrance. He's recovered in fine style. Currently 4th place in a race of his own at the moment. He's just got to guard against complacency. Now, Gamer as well with a bit of a recovery drive. Up now into 5th place. All things considered, he has done a fantastic job once again at a recovery drive as he lights up the rear tyres going all the way through turn 5 there. So, yeah, good drive from the Red Bull driver, all things considered. Focus now shifts back onto the front 3. Blizzard, Domi, Aero, as they make their way across the Anderson Bridge in towards the turn 13 hairpin. I think here Domi is just pretty relaxed at this moment in time. With just around 9 or so kilometers to go, he is just thinking to himself, I don't have to battle hard. I don't have to overtake Blizzard. All I have to do is hold station and I'll grab the win. I think that's exactly what he's going to do.
Yeah, it looks very likely at the moment, barring an absolute disaster, he's going to take the victory. And as we said, that is going to be a huge step towards taking the victory in this championship at the end of the season. Dario has managed to work his way past Surface, so that's going to change the position out on track unless he finds a miraculous amount of pace. It's not going to change anything on the final results because of the penalties that the McLaren driver currently has at this moment in time. Final lap of the race, Blizzard crosses the corner. He is 1 second ahead of Domi. He himself is 1.6 seconds ahead of Aero. Suku, bit of a Carlos Sainz-esque performance, just sort of doing a good job on his own at the moment, is in that 4th place, and it's Gamer, Dario, Surface, and that risk on the wet tyres. You can sort of see why they went for it. It just hasn't paid off. You can't really predict the weather around here. With the way it's been today, you've just got to make sure you're on the right tyres for that moment in time. And to be fair, the wets were the right tyres, but you can see now Johan desperately struggling there on every single corner. Those wets are just cooked.
They are, and it's obviously when you start to get less standing water out on track, it becomes less of a chance to cool down those tyres. So you warm up the tyres, they get too hot, you lose even more grip, you exacerbate the tyre wear, and it all just snowball effects into this one huge problem. I have to say though, Blizzard obviously leading the way. As it stands right now, Domi will be taking his 5th race win of the season. He has been so consistent here. He may have thrown away a potential win in front of his home fans, but I tell you what, he's going to try and make up that by scoring a win here at Singapore, and he's only really got around 2.5 kilometers to go.
Yeah, he's just got to be careful though, not to make any mistakes, not to get too excited in these final laps. The intermediates should have plenty of life in them at this moment in time. They are catching up to the back of Sam Gamer, who I think might, but to be honest, he might be tempted just to slow down and get lapped here, and he can finish about 2 minutes earlier because he's another driver really struggling on those wet tyres. But Blizzard leading us around the final few corners through turn 21 for the 31st and final time. It's going to be a 2nd win in a row out on track for Blizzard as he takes the checkered flags. Cross the line first at this Singapore Grand Prix. Domi though takes the victory, and Aero got a penalty on that final lap and just hangs on then to 2nd place by 0.3 of a second. Suku finishes in 4th position. Gamer is going to finish 5th. And Blizzard lit up the rear tyres around that final corner. You do wonder if he'd have had a more conventional run towards the line, he might have just snuck 2nd place.
He might have done, but at that moment, Blizzard is the one who gets the P3 as Gamer spins it across the line. It's been a frustrating day for him, but fair play to him. He recovered the drive well. 5th place for him on the day. Dario, meanwhile, well, what a race it could have been for him. He was definitely on the pace, had that moment at turn 5, hit the wall, lost his front wing, and he spins across the line for 6th place. What a race it could have been. Surface could still demote him, and he does, down to 7th place with that penalty to Dario there. So Johan should cross the line in 8th place, with Deso in 9th, and Sam Gamer is still all the way, just coming into the Anderson Bridge now, I believe. Is a long way from home at this moment in time. Johan crossed the line then, he finishes in 8th place. It's been a tough day for the bottom 3. They've just tried different strategies that just haven't quite worked at this track, and sometimes you get days like those and you just have to try and dust yourself off and go again. Deso makes his way around the final couple of corners to grab 9th place in this race. Still 2 points for himself and for Alfa Romeo, and Sam Gamer really tries to finish it off as he tries to put on a bit of a show just for the fans, just for him. He will grab 10th place, of course. He's past the 90% completed race part, so he should be able to pick up that last point, but we do want to see him cross the line to make sure he gets that point for sure, as he now just makes his way in towards turns 20 and 21, and now makes his way in towards turns 22 and 23 to take the final points paying position and the last finishing position of the race. Here he comes then across the line to take it, or at least not yet. He's putting on a little bit of a slide here as he didn't quite make it to the start-finish line. And, well, you know, donuts are great when you're P1, but not when you're P10, almost 2 minutes down on the leader. But there we go then. Domi does take the win. 5th win of the season for the Italian, and further extends his championship advantage. Driver of the day was Suku.
Yeah, Suku pretty much earning that drive of the day off the in-game fans for what was an absolutely fantastic start to the race, where he got himself up into 5th and gaining another position when Dario had his spin. But a 5th win of the season for Domi, his first one since joining the Visceral Racing esports team, and he now has a 63-point lead in the championship over Blizzard. With 6 races to go, he's not quite unassailable, but he's definitely heading that way, and he'll be hoping to extend it even further next time out at the Russian Grand Prix. So your provisional results then from round 16 of the AOR Hype Energy F1 Leagues here at Singapore. It's a victory for Domi, taking the win then from Aero, whose final lap penalty nearly cost him a second place. Blizzard ended up finishing just 3/10 of a second behind. Suku, quiet afternoon for him after lap 1 in 4th place. Gamer, 4 pit stops, 5th position. Not a bad recovery from him. He gets the fastest lap as well. Surface just didn't seem to have the pace of some of the others today. He was in 6th place, still managed to keep it clean. Dario 7th, Johan, Deso and Sam Gamer risked the wet tyres. It really didn't work out for them. They're 8th, 9th and 10th respectively. Zach, the only driver not to finish in this race. A race that pretty much had it all. I said I've commentated on races before that have gone from wet to dry to wet. I wasn't expecting it to happen tonight, but it just shows you at Singapore the weather can change in an instant. You've got to handle it well. You've got to say the top 3 did it the best, but Domi was the only one who kept it clean. That's why he's got the victory.
Yeah, absolutely spot on there. And also Gamer picking up the bonus fastest lap of the race point there. So a point extra for Gamer, which will, you know, it won't exactly sweeten the blow, but, you know, it was a tough race for him. And I think he'll just want to move on to Russia as quickly as possible. 59 minutes and 36 seconds, that race. Almost an hour. If we didn't have that dry period in the middle of the race, we definitely would have gone and exceeded an hour in this race. But it's more of an endurance, this one. It's one of those races where it will go on and you've got to make the least amount of mistakes possible in order to have a chance of finishing well. But the top 3 did it the best, as you said. You know, we could have had Dario up there had he not made that mistake early on in the race at turn 5 where the rear tyres just spun up on him, too heavy with the throttle pedal, and he just manages to find the wall. Still kept his front wing, or at least his 4 tyres intact, so that was at least a good start for him. But, you know, from that point onwards, it was always going to be an uphill battle for him. And yeah, again, Gamer, fair play to him. He didn't have the best race whatsoever. He lost his front wing very early on in the race, earlier than Dario. But again, it was that mentality. He replaced the front wing, went back out there, and got himself a very respectable 5th place.
Yes, and you've got to think about key turning points in that race. Blizzard maybe just going on that 1 lap longer. Who knows whether he'd been able to gain an extra position on Domi in the end at the checkered flag. It looked as though it was the right decision at the time because he was still coping fine on a set of the medium tyres. It just turned out to be a bit wrong. And then Blizzard and Aero nearly coming together in the dry period. If Blizzard had made that move cleanly, again, who knows if he'd been able to get ahead of Domi out on track early along. Who knows if he'd been able to extend the gap. But we've seen it a few times this season from Blizzard. He tends to pick up at least 6-9 seconds of penalties. It's cost him points throughout the season, and it's probably now, he's going to give it his everything, but you've got to say it's going to be very tricky with the consistency Domi is showing to pick up the championship now for Blizzard.
Yeah, and it's going to be an uphill battle, as you said. 63 points is now the gap that separates the 2 drivers. And we've got the Russian Grand Prix coming up next. And obviously, we know races in Russia have a tendency to just be a little bit more focused on keeping your car intact and focusing on your own race rather than overtaking. But getting a good pole time, getting a good qualifying is is a good start for the Russian Grand Prix. We've got 6 rounds left of this championship. So in real terms, we've got 156 points left to score if you count in those fastest lap of the race bonus points. We're on 63-point gap at the moment. And as we see, that will come back down by 26 points every race. So after Russia, there'll only be 130 points left to score, etc., etc. So it's going to be an uphill battle for Blizzard, but we've already seen how consistent Domi has been this entire season. It's not looking great for Blizzard, but whilst he's still in with the chance, he's still in with a chance.
Yes, definitely. And we'll ask him now what he feels about his title chances. We've got the man who finished second place in that race. A great result from yourself, Blizzard. Just a shame about those penalties in the race. Blizzard, you are still muted. I don't know if you're aware of that.
I wasn't here, sorry.
Yeah, no worries, Blizzard. A great race for yourself. Just a shame about those. Just a shame about those penalties costing you the win. But you showed good pace once again.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't expect it to be raining in both sessions, so that kind of threw me off a bit. And the tunnel, in particular, was throwing me off because it's dry in the tunnel. So when we went into the dries and it started raining again, I'd go for the tunnel and it'd be quite fast, and then I'd come out of it and I'd lose all of my grip, and it felt really weird because I wasn't used to it. It constantly kept changing around there.
Yeah, definitely a unique feature of Singapore and pretty much Monaco, going through all the tunnels and everything. You went for the medium tyres in your dry stint, whereas a lot of your rivals went for the hard tyres. Were you expecting it to rain again at that point, and is that why you went for the mediums?
Yeah, I thought it was raining again, and as I came in pits, apparently we had 5 minutes until it was going to be raining again, so I went mediums knowing that it would go back to the rain again.
You're now 63 points behind, 6 races to go. Obviously, you're going to give it your all, but with the consistency Domi is showing, it's going to be very tough to take this championship.
Yeah, it'd be very hard, but I'm up for the challenge.
Yeah, well, congratulations on your result today. Kieran, do you have any questions for our second place finisher?
Yeah, I mean, that was a race that had a bit of everything, really, in terms of weather. We had a heavy rain at the start. We had light rain most of the session. We even had a dry period in that race. But just how difficult was it to try and keep up with how many tyres you actually had to change onto in the end? And did you feel you got all of them right?
I think the tyres I picked were definitely the right ones each time. The bigger problem for me was trying to avoid the penalties because it was such a long race. That race must have been over an hour because it was raining and then changing and then had to go to pit stops, and the pit lane's really long. So.
And I can actually tell you it was 59 minutes and 38 seconds, so not quite an hour, but getting very close to it. And that leads me into my second and final question for you, Blizzard. Obviously, to keep on top of that for almost an hour, what with all the rain and even that dry period that we had in the middle of the race, just how difficult is it to keep on top of everything?
It's very difficult. I mean, Singapore is a very technical track, and it's just boosted by all of that rain, made it incredibly hard to drive, and then getting to the end, it was just like if you didn't have a rhythm, then you're probably just going to crash.
Yeah, couldn't have said that better myself. But thank you, Blizzard. That'll do it for me. I'll hand you back to Luke. But congratulations on your third place.
Yeah, congratulations on the podium, Blizzard. And I think it's fair to say, even if I'd have had a rhythm in that race, I'm fairly sure I'd have found the wall at some point. So that was our second place finisher. We're now going to bring in the man who finished just 0.3 of a second. Blizzard finished third, obviously. Aero finishing in second, just 0.3 of a second in the end, ahead of Domi. You had a lot of pace in that race. You just couldn't quite get ahead of the Haas driver.
Yeah, it was really hard to overtake. Just because of the track because of the track and raining, so it was so hard to get close to the car in front, and yeah, I think that's why I couldn't make a move.
We've already spoken with Blizzard about how difficult the track conditions were, changing from wet to dry and then back to almost full wet conditions towards the end. Whereas Blizzard went for the medium tyres, you went for the hard tyre. Was that because you didn't expect it to rain heavy enough at the end of the race to need the intermediates again?
Jeff told me to go to the hard, so I was like, okay, Jeff, if you're saying me to take the hards, I trust you. But yeah, I saw that the mediums were the better option at the end. But yeah, luckily, I still managed to finish in front of him. So yeah, I was happy with that.
It's your third podium of the season. You're 4th in the championship at the moment. You're the highest person in the championship yet to get a victory this season. Where out of the next 6 races do you think is going to be your best opportunity?
I think USA and Abu Dhabi.
Any particular reasons for those? Just tracks you enjoy?
What I can do there.
Well, I'll hand you over to Kieran to see if he has any questions for yourself.
Oh, of course I do. You know I do. Aero, great to have you here. Obviously, 2nd place for you in the race. Just tell us how you feel after that podium, because it was a heck of a long race.
Yeah, it was insane. It was first of all, I didn't expect to even start on 2nd place, because I saw really much drivers going on the softs at the end, and I knew the softs were just really much quicker than the inters. So I expected to be like P6, P7, but they were too late. So still managed to get a P2. Yeah, I didn't expect actually to be that good for me in the rain, because normally the rain is always dramatic. And yeah, the changeovers, it was really hard to get used to it every time.
Yeah, and this also equals your best result of the season in 2nd place, and your lowest finishing position of the season has been 7th place. How much has your consistency been a factor in how far up the table you are?
Well, I don't know. Just take it to the safe strategy. Normally, I'm taking some risk in every race. But yeah, I was like, this season, hopefully I can just be consistent and get as much points as possible every race.
It certainly looks like that's a good strategy going forward. And I'll ask you the same question I asked Blizzard as the very last question to yourself. Obviously, we went on for almost an hour in that race. Just how difficult is it to keep on top of everything and to keep your mind focused?
Oh, you don't want to know. I'm sweating as hell, man. Yeah, it was really hard, especially at the end, to keep that concentration. I also knew that Tommy wasn't going to get any penalties, so I just let a gap of 1.5 seconds, so I didn't have that much of a spray in front of me. Yeah, just take it safe, and still managed to get it 3 seconds in the final corner. But yeah, just trying to keep focus, but yeah, it was really hard because of the long race.
Well, that'll do it from me. I'll hand you back to Luke just in case he's got one more question. But it's been a pleasure, Aero, and we'll see you in Russia.
I hope so. In the commentary box again.
Yeah, safely in the commentary box. Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Hopefully, for your sake, if you are back in the commentary box again, it's after a bit of an easier race, because I can imagine that was very hard. But you managed to cope well and managed to equal your best results of the season. So congratulations to Aero on that 2nd position. That's pretty much it from us, Kieran. What was an incredibly long race, and somehow, despite all that went off with all the weather changes, it was the championship leader finishing in 1st position.
Yeah, and a top 3 that once you take away the penalties was very close all the way through. We could have had a 4-way battle for that lead had Dario not tripped over at turn 5. So it was really close between the top 3. We had close battles in the midfield as well. Who knows what it could have been a race for Dario and for CRG Gamer if they didn't make those slight errors, if they didn't get those damage they had at the start of the race. It could have been a really good race for them as well. But for what we got whether they couldn't decide what it was going to do. We got a dry spell in the race. We got heavy rain. We got light rain. We got some drivers on inters. We got some drivers on wets. I mean, that race had a little bit of everything. And in the end, Domi came out on top. Great race.
Yeah, Domi making sure that he kept his cool in the sweaty heat of Singapore and taking his 5th victory of the season. If you fancy some more Singapore action. If 59 minutes and 36 seconds wasn't enough for you, make sure to check out the PC League, which is on now. That has got Jens and Kozzy taking you through that. Alternatively, there is also the Xbox One League, which is live now. Both of them will be about 20 minutes into their race now. There is also F2 from the PC action available as well. Myself and Kieran will be back next week with the Russian Grand Prix. Just like to take this opportunity to thank our sponsors here at AOR. We've got Elgato, Hype Energy, Thrustmaster, and GT Omega Racing, all who help fund AOR and make these streams possible. And we'll see you next time around for round 17 of the championship, the Russian Grand Prix. Good night.